This is a law of sines and cosines problem because this is going to be a non-right triangle. We start with our box of angles and sides. We look to see that this is little a, little b, little c, which are our sides. So we label those in here as 18, 26, and 24. We look to see if there is a pair of letters, a big A and little a, big B, little b, big C, little c. There are no pairs. Since there are no pairs, we do law of cosines first, then we'll do law of sines. So with law of cosines, we use the smallest number. We always start with the smallest number, so that's little a. So we're going to deal with little a. That means we're going to find big A. We're going to find the angle. We're going to find angle A. So the law of cosines for finding an angle will be cosine of big A, since that's the angle we're finding, is equal to little a squared minus little b squared minus little c squared all over -2 times b times c. So when we write this in, we'll have cosine of big A is equal to 18 squared minus 26 squared minus 24 squared, all of that over -2 times 26 times 24. So we're going to write out cosine of big A is equal to our numerator of 18 squared minus 26 squared minus 24 squared is -928 over -2 times 26 times 24 is -1,248. We'll just simplify that real quick. -928 divided by -1248 as a fraction, so we do want to keep it as a fraction instead of a decimal, is equal to 29 over 39. So I have cosine of big A is equal to 29 over 39. Now to solve for A, you do the inverse of the cosine. So that's going to be cosine inverse and cosine inverse. So then we make sure our Desmos or our calculator is in degree mode, and we do cosine inverse of 29 divided by 39, and we get A is equal to 41.96. So we're going to round that to the nearest degree of 42 degrees. So I'm going to put that into big A is 42 degrees. Now that we have a pair of big A and little a, that's why we can do law of sines. So I'm going to write out law of sines. And we want to find, again, another angle, but we want to go down to 26 is bigger than 24, so we want to find big C. So we want to find the angle of big C. So in order to do law of sines to find an angle, we do sine of big C over little c will equal to sine of, so we have A and A, we're going to use sine of big A over little a. So to do this math, sine of big C over little c, which is 24, is equal to sine of big A, which we just found was 42, over little a, which is 18. Now we just need to do the inverse operation to find C, which has a 24 and a sine attached to it. So we're going to multiply both sides by 24. We'll have sine of big C is equal to, since that's a numerator, because that's really 24 over 1, that becomes 24 sine of 42 over 18. That denominator is still 18. Please remember that the 24 and the 42 cannot multiply to each other, because that 42 is a 42 degrees and it does not get bigger. So I'm not going to type that into the calculator because it's going to give me a really bad decimal. I'm going to leave it as is for now. So we have sine of c. The inverse of sine is sine inverse. We're going to do sine inverse of this entire thing. So in our calculator, it will actually be written like this. Sine inverse of 24 sine, parentheses, 42. Make sure that parentheses gets closed, divided by 18. Then I'm going to close that outside parentheses as well. That includes the entire value of the inverse of sine. So when I type that in, so sine inverse of 24 sine 42, close one parenthesis, divide by 18, close another parenthesis, and we get that big C is equal to 63.15. So if I were to round that to the nearest, let's go with 10th for our values. So even the 41.96, if I rounded that to the nearest 10th, it will still be 42. So to the nearest 10th, it's going to be 63. It was actually the value of 63.1477. So this 4 makes that 1 stay the same. So C is 63.1. So up here, I'm going to use 63.1 degrees. Now, I only had to do law of cosines once, and I only had to do law of sines one time. Because now I know that all of my angles, because they're angles, they add up to 180 degrees. And I already have 2 of them, so I can find the third angle of B. It'll be 63.1 degrees plus 42 degrees plus angle B is equal to 180. So I'll do 180, and I'll subtract the 63.1, and I'll also subtract the 42, and we'll get that big B is equal to 74.9. Now, to double check that these are correct, I'm going to come into here and find on my angles the largest angle, which was B. I'm going to put a little L in this corner. I'm going to find the smallest number, which is 42, put a little S in this corner. And then for the sides, I'm going to do the same thing. So my largest number here is 26. I'm going to put an L in the corner there. And my smallest is 18. I'll put an S in that corner. As long as my S's match up and my L's match up, I know that I did create a correct triangle.